Nah. If you want to scare someone for not, reading on the toilet, but then again, I thought parents were supposed to encourage their children to read. But if you do want to discourage them from reading on the toilet, there's one simple way to do that. You take a simple little teaspoon like this, because after all they are, they're your kids, they're pretty small. And you gouge both their eyes out with it! And then place on the hob for around about 5-10 minutes. And then sprinkle with a tiny pinch of salt. Also get a nice bit of pepper in it, and delicioso. Welcome to Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, a series of cautionary tales for lovers of Scream. Okay, so first of all, I think I should provide a little bit of context before going straight into this review. So, what is Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids? Well, anyone who is around my age, who grew up in, the 2000s, or even, the early 2010s, will probably, if you live in the UK, will probably know what Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids is. So, for any Americans out there, Grizzly Tales was sort of our answer to programs such as Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps. However, unlike those two programs, which were both live action, Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids actually got away with a bit more, mainly because it was animated, unlike the other two, which were live action. So it meant that kids could actually be tortured, kids could actually be killed. And all this was because, hey, it's animated. That makes it completely okay. Its original release was on ITV, or CITV, here in the UK. Originally, it was a combination between stop-motion inserts at the beginning, the actual tail being 2D animation, which, to be honest, it was pretty limited 2D animation because it was on a strict budget. Now, Series 1 to 4 of Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids had this introduction bit that was stop-motion animated, where Uncle Grizzly, yes, that is the name of the character, who is also the narrator, played by Nigel Plummer. I'm gonna be pronouncing that incorrectly, but he is the narrator, and he is the only voice actor in this entire thing. He does all the voices because he's essentially just narrating it. And he does a phenomenal job at it as well. He really makes even the boring ones seem more entertaining because he brings so much energy to it. But anyway, these stop motion segments were the highlights. They were the most interesting things because basically for most of it would just be Uncle Grizzly torturing Spingleshakes, the spider. That was for the most part what he would do in most of these segments, and this episode I'm reviewing today is no exception to that. Unfortunately, for Series 5 and Series 6, they would drop the 2D animated segments, only keeping in the introductory theme for Grizzly Tales, where this schoolboy wanders into this cinema. And, hey, he's the only person there, and he's given some disgusting insects to eat while he watches a film. It's never told what happens after the Grizzly Tale is over. This was then sort of answered later on when the show got picked up by Nickelodeon. Now, Nickelodeon initially just re-aired series 1 to 6 of Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids. However, the show became popular again, and this was around in 2010, so they decided to do a soft reboot of the series. In terms of the setting and location had changed, but Nigel was still the narrator, and also they sort of went back to the sort of deal that they went before. The opening segment now being in CGI rather than stop motion, and it is 3D animated, and then the 2D sections of the tale just being the regular. However, the 2D segments for those is a massive downgrade. Series 7 and 8 are pretty shit. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, if it wasn't for, Nigel's return, then they wouldn't be worth watching whatsoever. To be honest, they aren't really. The only difference there was the setting had changed from a kid wandering, into a cinema after school to a kid getting locked up in a hotel underground, and that sort of spoilt new trick. Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids Series 7 and 8, which was just renamed to just Grizzly Tales, mainly because for most of the part you knew that the kids were going to end up in this hotel, whereas in the original run you didn't know what was going to happen to them. Sometimes the kids would actually learn a lesson and things would actually, improve for them. Sometimes they would die. Sometimes something worse than death would happen. It's all a mystery, but with Series 7 and 8, it kind of had to play it on, oh, well, they've got to end up at this hotel and be locked up to serve time forever. But anyway, let's talk about the episode I'm going to be reviewing today, which is Bogman. And this is during its Grizzly Tales heyday, where, hooray, we've got a stop-motion animated segment at the beginning.
You are welcome to Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, a series of cautionary tales for lovers of scream. Imagine sitting here, reading a comic, thinking you were alone when you weren't. Imagine hearing a scream, a cry for help. Imagine a hand. Oh, hold my aching sides, Spindleshanks. I call this tale Bogman.
So we get a little introduction bit with Uncle Grizzly basically saying, imagine if someone was there when you're taking a shit, reading a comic. Obviously this thing came out in the early to mid 2000s, so nowadays imagine sitting on the toilet on your phone, which pretty much all of us do. So, to be honest, yeah, the scenario is exactly the same, but imagine you hear screams or something from the toilet. To be honest, this opening scene, even though it is incredibly short, it really grabs you into it, because for one, it's funny. It's funny seeing Uncle Grizzly with his trousers down on the toilet. But also, Nigel's performance during this makes makes it almost sort of like slightly creepy, and the music sort of kicks in with the lighting as well, from particularly the green coming from the toilet, and we get a sort of fake jump scare. Springle Shakes, or is it Springle Shanks? You can pronounce it either way. Has a rubber glove on and tries to grab Uncle Grizzly where the sun don't shine. We can imagine from this point, Uncle Grizzly probably beats the living shit out of Springle Shanks. But anyway, now we're into this tale properly. And we get a little introduction to Bogman, essentially him being a caveman who drowned in not very pleasant circumstances in a sort of muddy swamp. And his bones are being resting there, and now there is a house built over it in modern day. I wonder what's gonna happen. So we get introduced to Helen. So the whole deal with her is she doesn't want to do the washing up. So she pretends to be on the toilet when in reality she's just sitting on it.
Helen? Helen, where are you? I'm on the loo. Well, come downstairs now and help with the washing up. Helen was a bit of a shirker. Every day her mother would ask her to help clear the table, and every day she said, I'd love to, but I just have to go to the loo first. Why is it, said her mother, that whenever there's work to be done in this house, you always have to go to the loo?
And reading comic books. Now, obviously, they can't show her with her skirt down, unlike Uncle Grizzly, so she's just sitting on it without, pulling down anything, because she doesn't actually need to go, surprisingly enough. And, yeah, we also get introduced to Helen's family. Her mum and dad, who basically, they just want her to do the washing up and do her fair share, and Damien, who is basically sick of doing the washing up for her. And to be honest, in pretty much every Grizzly Tales, you'll either get one or two types of parents. Ones that are incredibly negligent of their parents. One where the parents are completely negligent of their kids and couldn't give a shit what they do. Or you'll get the parents who just want their kid to bloody do what they say. And just really earn their keep. Just do, one simple thing and don't be a prick. You'll generally get these one or two archetype parents. Now, the ones who are negligent, you can understand why, their kid ends up like that. And then the other type of parent, the one who basically just wants their kid to do something, but doesn't actually force them to do it. Kind of see what the problem is, because the way that the parents are portrayed, they keep, they seem pretty authoritative, but their daughter just completely ignores them. But just force her. Or if not, then punish her. But hey, she's about to get a lesson. And with a little helping hand from Bogman. So how is Bogman actually awoken? Well, basically, Helen's father cuts his finger while doing chopping, some onions and that, tomato, and because Helen is distracting him, and yeah, this blood goes all the way down the drain pipe, and this blood, few drops of blood, is enough to awaken Bogman. Now, Bogman is set up pretty well in this. I mean, we have the sepia introduction at the beginning to how Bogman actually died, but then we also have this really eerie sort of howl scream of Bogman, which really is an eerie sound. And also the way that it's set up is that we have a nice pan shot down the drain pipe, and when the blood goes down there, we actually see Bogman leap right out at us.
I've done it again now.
Which, to be honest, as a kid, you're probably gonna be thrown back into your seat when you see that as a young kid watching this. Now, I was a bit older by the time this episode was released. I wasn't, in the younger demographic, but I remember, I think it was my brother who might have shit himself when Bogman appeared like that. It was either my brother or my sister when they saw this, because they were 5.5 years younger than me. So, to be honest, that is a nice little eerie thing. Obviously, Bogman is just a skeleton. I mean, he's been there for God knows how long. Of course he's going to be a skeleton, but nice pearly white skeleton. So, hey, he's kept himself clean despite where he's being buried. But yeah, this blood is enough to awaken Bogman. But anyway, everything continues as it normally should. Dinner time comes, Helen is asked to go and help with the dishes, and of course she goes to the toilet and pretends to be having a shit or whatever, but in reality she's just reading comics until she hears a weird noise. She just puts off just so next, gets the dishes, but
It looked normal enough, just like Lou's always looked. Wet, white and boring. There was that noise again. Suddenly, it went dark. She felt rain on her cheek. And a foul smell of rotting wood filled her nostrils. "What do you want?" she shouted. And the voice replied, "I want my revenge."
then it starts raining and going dark inside the toilet. Obviously, this is kind of the point where shit, better stop pretending to have a shit and actually get out of here right now. Despite this though, Helen does get off the toilet, but she doesn't really attempt to leave. Like, seriously, you're hearing weird noises, it's raining inside the toilet, and the toilet is now overflowing with bog, basically blackness, and get out! Seriously, get out! I mean, I've watched this footage several times, and she doesn't really even try the door. Like, I know there's being frozen, stiff and scared, but then there's also running the fuck out. But she pretty much just allows Bogman to grab her, and Bogman...
What is it? I don't know. It looks like Pete. Helen's upstairs by herself. But of course, Helen was not by herself. You're Bogman! I heard your mother say that I would come. You must know who killed me. No, I don't know anything. And she didn't think you were real. She just wanted me to do the washing up. But your father knows where my killers are buried. From the paper. He just read a paper, that's all. They will tell me their secrets once you are my prisoner. Stop! Where are my killers?
What does he want? Well, he wants revenge for the people who killed him. You want revenge on the people who killed you, even though they're dead. And Bogman knows they're dead. But Bogman thinks that Helen's father knows where his killers are buried. Okay. But even if Helen's father actually did know where Bogman's, killers were buried, for one, there's no way on earth for any of them to know, which caveman killed another caveman. Because, well, yeah, but there's no way for anyone to know. But even if by some miracle they did, how is Bogman going to get his revenge on them? They're dead already, and he is dead. So really, he can't do anything as a skeleton to them. I mean, if there truly is an afterlife, then surely he should go after them in the afterlife. I'm thinking into this far too much, aren't I? I'm really thinking into this far too much, but... Wow, it's the adult in me. Slowly pushing through. Always and forever. Is this what I've really become? Oh well. Helen was also grabbed by Bogman, but... Again, Bogman is a skeleton. Alright? He's a skeleton. He's got no muscles. He probably is... I mean, unless it is supernatural power that... Well, it is supernatural power that is making him whole, but... Do something! But anyway... Helen's family burst in! Showing that... Really, was the door even locked? Did Helen even bother locking the door when she went in? I mean, if not, then if you were legitimately going, then someone could easily just walk in on you. Don't want that happening. Oh, do not want that happening. Now, when Helen's family burst in, Bogman throttles Helen's mother by the neck, though I just find it hilarious because...
Roared Bogman, dropping Helen and reaching for her mother. Run! Shouted Helen. He'll kill you! But her mother couldn't move.
Now, because, this is obviously cheap animation, they had a very strict budget, very... thin budget to work with. Bogman is just sort of doing this, and Helen's mother does not move. She's just got her mouth open like this, with her eyes open, going. Which, to be honest, now looking at it, she kind of reminds me of a sex doll. Now, hear me out. She's got wide eyes. Her mouth is open, and Bogman is doing this. If he was doing it in this motion rather than this motion, yeah. I've just ruined it for you, haven't I? Then I've done my job! But it's Helen's brother, Damien, who rolls up a comic and throws it to his father to hit Bogman over the head with.
It was Damien who rolled up the comic and threw it into his father's hand. But when he brought it crashing down on Bogman's skull, it wasn't a rolled up comic at all. It was a spear. A Stone Age spear. As the thunderclouds rolled away, Bogman floated to the ground as dust and sank slowly into the peat bog, just as he had 2,000 years before. The house was in an awful mess. It took the family 3 weeks to clear it up. For once, Helen did not have to be asked to help. In fact, it won't surprise you to know, she shoveled more peat than anyone else.
Why Damien doesn't just hit him over the head with it, dunno. And also, a comic, it's good for killing flies, but not good for killing skeletons. However, it magically turns into a spear when it's hit over the head with Bogman, and he then disintegrates. It's never explained why this happens, it just does happen. I don't really know. But anyway, Bogman crumbles to dust and is flushed away down the toilet. And that's the end of Bogman. And this is one of the rare instances where no one dies and no one is disfigured in any way. The only thing is that Helen and her family's house is now full of bog from the bog. But they all have to clean it, and Helen helped the most and didn't need to be asked, so she actually learned a lesson. If you hear something on the toilet and it starts ringing in the toilet, fucking run!
In case you're wondering, Spindleshanks always helps with the washing up. I find his hairy back especially useful. Oh, do stop moaning, Spindleshanks. You love it. And after this, you're scrubbing the loo.
We then get one final scene with Uncle Grizzly again, revealing the punishment that Spindleshanks got, which was basically he's going to be a spider sponge for cleaning the dishes and then cleaning the loo. Seriously, Nigel has a really good laugh. So, that was Bogman. What do I think of it? How does it hold up? Well, it's an enjoyable time. I mean, I know I've nitpicked quite a bit into this, but to be honest, there isn't a lot you can really give in terms of other than exposition dumping, especially in the time allocated. And I've said this in many things before, if you've given such a short time slot, you've just got to get on with it. There's no time to dilly-dally or wait about. You've just got to get on and do it. So I'm glad that's what they did. And to be honest, it has its creep value and that. I mean, to be honest, now watching it, it's more funny than creepy at all. But this is one of the more lighter. This is probably the most light-hearted one out of all of Grizzly Tales, to be honest, because nothing really horrible happens to anyone. Sure, they're probably traumatised from that night with Bogman, and having to, shovel all the bog out of their house would have been a nightmare. But other than that, yeah, nothing actually happens to anyone. It's a very tame one, but it has a really good opening to it. The build up to Bogman and Bogman's final, his first reveal is really good, and it's really tense. But I would say the way Bogman is defeated is a bit weird. I mean, it kind of felt like the writer got all the way up to this point and then suddenly realised, how are we going to get rid of Bogman? And so just suddenly, the comic turns into a spear if you try and hit Bogman on the head with it. Yeah. Okay. Great. But other than that, the rest of it is good. I would say the ending is a bit of a weakness of it. But to be honest, it's an enjoyable time watching it, but also just listening to it. Again, if this was narrated by pretty much nearly anyone else, to be honest, it probably wouldn't work such as good. But those little subtle undertones that I put into its performance is really good in getting you engaged and gripped. And, the Bogman, I mean, the thing is, we didn't know what he was going to do, to be honest. And what he does actually want, he just wants revenge on his killers. He doesn't actually want revenge on anyone else. I mean, a lot of the time with Grizzly Tales, the villain of the episode, if you exclude the child, a lot of the time the child is the villain of the episode. A lot of the time the antagonist is someone there to either, get rid or at least teach the child a lesson, sometimes a very lethal lesson about the way that they're behaving, which is basically like a little brat. But in this case, the fact that Helen learnt something was just a coincidence. Bogman was just looking for his killers. He wasn't really bothered about Helen, and to be honest, he wasn't even going to essentially kill her. He was going to keep her as a prisoner, as he said. Keep her as a prisoner until he found out where his killers were. Okay. But in terms of that, I enjoyed it for what it was, and I do highly recommend it. I'd certainly recommend, although this isn't the strongest episode of Grizzly Tales, it is still a very memorable one. And also, it's better than anything Series 7 or 8 has to offer. In fact, it's probably better than most of Series 5 and 6 as well, because we have the stop motion sections at the beginning and at the end with Uncle Grizzly, which are very short in this one. Admittedly, normally they are a little bit longer, but they're still enjoyable nonetheless. Anyway, that does it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Are you reading Twitter on the toilet again?
No, not Twitter.
Listen, I don't care if it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook or whatever. You're not reading anything on the toilet. I'll let you finish.